It's the Morning Brew with Elle Dawson and Gillian Robertson. Brought to you by Fight Bananas.
Good morning, everybody. Happy Sunday. This is the Morning Brew with yours truly, Elle Dawson. And to my left/right, I never know, is Gillian the Savage Robertson. How are you?
I'm doing good. We had a pretty good night of fights last night.
Gosh, killer night of fights. Honestly, there were some fights going into this weekend. I felt like I had no idea what was going to happen between Prates and Jeff Neal. I felt like I had no idea what was going to happen between MVP and Jared Cannonier. And I felt like anything could have happened in this main event. Obviously, Khamzat Chimaev was the man of the hour and absolutely dominated. But just overall, this card, I would say solid pay-per-view. What would you, A to F, where are you rating this card?
I was just about to ask you that. I feel like I always get it first.
I'll go if you want. I think I give this an A- all around. My one caveat, I guess, is the main event, while dominant, wasn't the most exciting fight. And can I say that I'm impressed with Khamzat while also being disappointed in the fight? Is that allowed?
No, that is exactly where I'm sitting. Honestly, I was sitting at B+. I can see where you're at A- too. I'm I don't think it was absolutely insane every single fight, but there was definitely some good fights on there. And that's exactly how I feel about the main event, though. I'm Khamzat looks so impressive, but also I'm if you are that dominant, if you are controlling, it was 25, I don't know, an insane, almost 25 minutes of the fight. It's on the feet for less than a minute each round, I think.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm when you're controlling that much, take some take some risks, take some offensive risks. You need to try to finish the fight more. When you have 500 and something strikes, you need more than 37 significant strikes in the fight.
100%. And I love that you just said that, because I feel like that's exactly what I expected to hear from Gillian Robertson. We've had a lot of conversations about stand-ups, and there was a stand-up, and just, it is the entertainment business, and it is your responsibility as a fighter to some extent to create damage, right? And to create some exciting positions. So it's I think there's also something to be said about, it is very clear that there is a bias depending on who is fighting in this style. I think if we go back to Bilal Muhammad's performance over Leon Edwards, incredibly dominant performance, and in my opinion, a much more exciting fight than the one I watched last night. And afterwards, Dana White was absolutely just trashing Bilal Muhammad for that performance. And then we turn around after a performance like this, if not equally as dominant, even more dominant, but less fun to watch overall. And he's talking about how Khamzat needs to get a quick turnaround, and he can't wait to have him back in there. So I'm just it's so interesting to me which fighters can kind of get away with this style and which cannot, if that makes sense.
Well, I think it also has to do a lot with the star power outside the cage as well, where I'm I was shocked to see this weekend that Khamzat has over 10 million followers in the U.S. and on Instagram, where in the UFC there's only 3 fighters who have that, which is Topuria, Islam, and him. I'm that's just an insane group to be a part of. So he obviously is just an absolute superstar in who he is. So I think that's where Dana's just kind of always team Khamzat,
I understand that. The crowd wasn't even booing as much in this fight as they were in fights that were more exciting, so you can definitely see the impact he's had on the MMA community. But it is done. Who is gonna beat this guy? If we're looking at Khamzat Chimaev, I can argue that it wasn't exciting. We can talk about how it is your responsibility when you're dominating that much to do some serious damage. But at the end of the day, who is going to beat this man?
I honestly, I have no idea for that, one. And two, DDP fooled me all week. I feel like he acted like he was so confident in being able to handle Khamzat either the takedown or once he got taken down, he was like, oh yeah, I feel like I'll be capable on the ground. I'm like, he looked like he was just holding on once he got there. I'm like, he wasn't really trying to create frames, wasn't trying to create space. And obviously it's having Khamzat on top of you, it's a different kind of beast. I understand it's not easy, but it didn't even look like he was trying to create those options. I'm like, I just wish he had more options on the bottom there. And that's where it kind of maybe like a cow by Hayo, if we can see like a good guard play, where I know even with Gilbert Burns, when he started playing in the guard, Khamzat kind of backed out even.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think that a guy like that is probably, I agree with you, Sean Sterling. I think he's probably the most compelling matchup. Absolutely, Anthony Hernandez is interesting too, but just looking at the physicality of Khamzat, how often do we see DDP get out muscled and out strength and just out like that doesn't happen. And I feel like Anthony Hernandez is a smaller guy in this division. And I just don't know if even with his pace and his wrestling, can he deal with the physicality of Khamzat? While Caio Borralho is a big guy. He's long, he's lanky, he's strong, and he has the threat of really good jiu-jitsu off of his back. I'd rather sandpaper my nuts than watch that again. Jake, I'm kind of with you. Like I'm impressed with Khamzat. I respect the dominance and the power, but it's a physical prowess that he has. But yeah, it wasn't the most exciting fight to watch. I was a little disappointed in that as well. But also, there's something to be said about this too. If Islam does win the 170-pound belt, now, I don't even know if that man can still make 170, but watching that fight, I don't see how Islam beats a guy like Khamzat Chimaev.
Yeah, I think I don't know, it's hard to beat that style in general. Especially if he is playing like he did last night, where it is so safe, where he's not taking a lot of risks, but he is just dominating, controlling the whole time. And I think you even kind of saw it at the end where I feel like he can't take those risks because he kind of gassed out a little bit in the last like minute or two. You saw DDP kind of getting that a little bit more of an edge because I'm like, Khamzat in the last couple minutes of the 5th round wasn't looking his sharpest.
No, I agree. And honestly, even at the end of the 1st round, we see DDP kind of come out the back door and have this moment where he does create a scramble. And so I'm kind of with you where I'm a little disappointed to see DDP, like even in the crucifix position, there were moments where he could have gotten off the head, moved to frame on the face to create some more space. He had the room to do it, and he just stayed on the head. And so it's like, I do think he probably could have created more of those scrambles like he created in the 1st and the last round throughout the fight. And maybe he was afraid of getting tired. Maybe there's that just the fear of the choke. But anytime Khamzat threatened the choke, DDP did a great job of defending it. And it seemed to me that they almost spent too much time in their camp, maybe worrying about how to defend the submissions, but not working on the overall defense of the wrestling. And we see this constantly. And I'm disappointed to still see fighters at this level making what I consider a very big mistake when you are fighting a good wrestler. And you don't get low. You don't get low and stand in front of them. You move your feet. Like you're always trying to wrestle in your fights, almost always. Who is going to be harder for you to shoot on? The guy who's standing right in front of you or the guy with elusive, like a Natalia Silva, who has elusive footwork that you're going to have to track all over the cage and get her planted in front of you before you can get deep on a shot,
It's so funny you say that because when you were talking about that, that's the example I was going to bring up was Natalia Silva. I'm like, someone like her, I've always said the best way to fight me is to almost not fight me. You got to point fight on the outside. You got to just be touching me on the outside, trying to make me chase after you, make it so. And like, obviously like someone like MVP, I feel like is very hard. Like he's hard to find on the outside, but I'm like someone like that. It's when I can't find you, that's when I'm going to start struggling.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I think it was disappointing to hear DDP's corner continuously telling him to get low throughout the fight when that wasn't like there just weren't any adjustments. I feel like in between rounds that we just saw the same thing until that last round when he created that scramble. But honestly, you brought up MVP and we didn't really talk about it. We were talking about Fluffy. We're talking about Caio Borralho. Is MVP the man that can be just as difficult of a puzzle to solve as Khamzat Chimaev? Because the performance that he put on, I'm an MVP fan, but he's not always my favorite fighter to watch fight. I loved watching him fight Jared Cannonier. I don't know if it was Jared Cannonier's pressure that brought out that style of MVP, or if it was just MVP choosing to throw significantly more volume and just to put on a show. But he absolutely performed. And the way he just bullfighting style, almost moving out of the way, allowing Cannonier to get past him. I almost wonder if he could do something like that to a Khamzat Chimaev style.
I don't know. I think we saw kind of what happened with Ian Gary and him. I'm like,
That's true.
I think if Ian Gary can out wrestle you, I don't think you got much chance with Khamzat.
That's fair.
But honestly, coming into the UFC, I was kind of a hater on this side of MVP, where I was like, why are they signing him? He's a little bit older. Like, I don't understand this one. And since he's been in the UFC, he's constantly impressed me. And I've always really enjoyed watching him fight these last couple fights. So I'm like, he's definitely been, a very entertaining fight. And I think the fight to make next is him versus Adesanya. Like, that's the one I want to see.
To be honest with you, I kind of disagree. I feel like everybody's saying that. Do you know what I want to see? I want to see Paulo Costa. I feel like the thing that MVP has, like, I do agree that Izzy still has that fast twitch and that what's that word? He makes people more urgent because he's twitching in front of him, and he has the speed to kind of hang out in that same style with MVP. But I think normally when we combine two styles like that, we get a lot of feeling out because you have two counter strikers respecting each other's counter striking. I feel like it's not a recipe for a super fun fight. I feel like Cannonier has the style to make an MVP fight really fun, but what he doesn't have is the length. He doesn't have like the height and the length. And I think he's a little too basic. He's very good at what he does. Like his style of kickboxing is powerful and strong, and he can beat a lot of guys like that. But for an MVP who's so elusive and has so many more tools, I feel like you need a Paulo Costa, a guy who's as tall or almost as tall as him and has the length of the arms, but will also walk forward and just throw bombs similar to how Cannonier was trying to fight him. I think it makes for a fun fight.
No, I think you just said it there. Somebody who's going to walk forward that's going to make it a more exciting fight. I can definitely see your point that on like him versus Izzy kind of being more of a stalemate, like they're both just kind of feeling each other out, not necessarily an exciting fight. And no, I can definitely see where you're coming with that.
And I don't think I'm interested to see what happens, but I think the fight with Costa is more fun, if that makes sense.
No, 100%. It's for the fans.
Yeah, honestly, there's a lot of really interesting matchups for him here at middleweight. Even Brendan Allen's striking is sharp. He's got the threat of the wrestling.
I think, I don't know, for me, I'm like, I don't want to see MVP fight any wrestlers. I don't want to see him fight a grappler. Like I said, he is a little bit older, and I think we should keep him like fighting bigger stars or more exciting fights. Like he should be more of a name than I don't see him making a title run, is what I'm saying. So I'm like, I feel like they should just keep him as a name, get him good fights, exciting fights, and I don't want to see him fight any grapplers.
I think that's fair. You make good points. And to be honest with you too, I think it's too late in his career to really fill that hole too. So it's like you can see it when he gets on the ground. I will say, if that man can stay on the cage, his defensive wrestling is solid, especially at 85. He just looked massive. And you kept saying Cannonier, and DC kept saying it over and over again. You've got to shoot the single on a guy like that. You are not going to connect your hands and lock your hands and get this great lock double on a guy who stands that wide. You have to shoot the single on him. But he's so tall. He's so athletic on the cage. But you see it when he gets flattened out in the open mat. He just doesn't have the skill set there. He has the athleticism and the overall fight intelligence to not get finished there, but he just doesn't have the threat of anything off of his back or the ability to scramble and give up his back and Granby or do whatever he needs to do to get back to his feet. And so I am kind of with you there. Cannonier is not necessarily known for his grappling, and that was a pretty easy third round for him.
Yeah, and even when he does get taken down against the cage, I feel like his ability to get up, I want to say 2 or 3 times he was able to get up like effortlessly when he is against the cage.
Yeah.
It's just once you take away that little wall for him, then it's like you definitely see the struggle start.
Yeah, I get it. I mean, the cage is my best friend if I've been taken down. Like, it is absolutely, that's where I want to be. So if you can put him in the middle of the mat like that, you're probably going to just cut through him. So I'm kind of with you there. I think he's a really great tool for the UFC if they match make for him the way that the matchmakers just did this whole card last night. I just want to tip my hat to the matchmakers because, man, Lerone Murphy, Aaron Pico, Carlos Prates, Jeff Neal, for as long as those fights lasted, were fantastic fights. To be honest with you, I was so in utter disbelief over the odds for Lerone Murphy and Aaron Pico. I'm like, you have a guy that is 16-0 in the UFC, has absolutely just annihilated Josh Emmett, Danny Gay, Enson Barbosa. And then you have a guy with 0 UFC wins who, while has had some really impressive performances on the Bellator scene, has also had some not so impressive performances on the Bellator scene against guys that I don't think would do well in the UFC. And so to see Lerone Murphy as an underdog here, I was just in shock. I don't know if you were on the same boat, but I definitely was very high on Lerone Murphy. And I want to give credit where credit is due. Aaron Pico looked really, really good until that spinning elbow.
Oh, yeah. I was definitely like, I'm always confused by the odds, but I also never, I guess, know how to judge somebody coming over from Bellator. I'm like, it's so hit or miss. I feel like if the lights do make a difference, if the competition level makes a difference, whatever, you see guys come over who do great, like MVP, and guys come over who do not so great, where I'm always just like, I'm going to keep my hands off this. I don't know how to bet these. I don't know how to, I never know how to assume a Bellator fighter is going to come into the UFC. But definitely Aaron Pico showed up. I feel like he went out there and it was almost to the point where I feel like he was so offensive, he disrespected Lerone Murphy. He really didn't care about what he would like. Every time Lerone had like a little opportunity, he caught him with like a short elbow. He caught him with a nice knee. And like Aaron just kept pressuring forward. And it was almost just like disrespectful. He was like, I don't care what you hit me with. I'm coming forward. And then it was obviously until he couldn't come forward anymore.
And to be honest with you, I don't even know if that was a mistake to fight him that way. Like, Lerone Murphy is a guy, you can't really let him get going. Like, he builds so much momentum, but also just the length and the way he uses his range control. You really have to, if you want to take away most of Lerone Murphy's tools, you have to get him moving backwards. Like, you can't really allow him to put the pressure on. So I don't even want to say that this was a mistake on Pico's part. Maybe it could have been a little bit more savvy as he entered into the pocket. But man, he was hurting Lerone Murphy. I was talking about Mike Brown with this a couple days ago. And I'm texting him and I'm like, I owe you an apology. Pico looks great. and then it just, you would see these moments where Lerone Murphy was finding him, but it was only for a second. This like on almost Edson Barbosa style knee as Pico like shot in on the cage. And I was like, oh, that's the shot that's going to put him out. And then I was like, oh, his chin's holding up, which we've seen him get dropped and rocked and knocked out. So his chin is kind of a little suspect, I would say, overall. Got knocked out by Adam Boric in Bellator. But like, I thought his chin was holding up until it wasn't. But the contact on that elbow, I think, would have put anybody out, to be honest.
Yeah, and I agree with the pressure. I'm like, I feel like it was very good, but it's also, you need to kind of respect what your opponent has and like understand when you are getting caught and you need to take your, I guess, defensive precautions at that point. You need to take a little bit of a step back, and because like while he was catching Lerone was also catching him.
Right. And while Pico had some nasty body shots, I do think that there was a little bit more, even though Lerone's shots was like one here. There's only like 3 of them. There was a lot more danger in that shot and more explosiveness. Meanwhile, the body shots were hurting Lerone Murphy. So maybe what we needed to see from Pico was just like a little bit of a reset in between each big combination. Like, okay, I'm resetting, I'm framing, keeping myself safe, and now I go again. Maybe that's what we needed to see there.
Exactly what I'm saying. I'm like, he just needed to take a little bit more of like, okay, this guy can hurt me too. I need to not just keep walking forward and hitting him. Like, I need to think about my own chin too.
Yeah. No, 100%. And man, it was a beautiful, beautiful elbow. And to have 2 spinning elbows like that in a row.
Oh yeah, they were saying that I believe there was 8 in UFC history before last night, so that's 9 and 10. So I'm like crazy to have both on the same night.
And back to back too. And honestly, I thought Jeff Neal was looking really good in that fight too. I don't know that it was a close round for sure, but Jeff Neal was landing as well. And Pratis is another guy that's incredibly hard to fight. And you see that like just slick, elusive style. But I feel like Pratis made leaps and bounds between the Gary fight and this. I think in the past, he's been a little bit too much of a slow starter where he's really trying to find his reads. And I think that's what kind of lost him that fight with Gary, because you saw him kind of come back at the end. Like you saw him have a really good last round in that fight. And here, he didn't really give Jeff Neal a lot of time to kind of take over that first round, if that makes sense.
No, I think he took about a good like 2.5 minutes, I want to say, where I don't want to call it a slow start because he was like just making his reads. He was using his footwork a lot. He was using a jab a lot, and he was using that leg kick a lot. So he was still staying active, but just with things that are a little bit safer to stay on the outside. And every time Jeff Neal rushed in, he was able to use his footwork, get out of the way. And then it was around like the 2:30 mark. You saw Pratis start opening up a little bit more, finding his shots. And I'm like, that spinning elbow, the way he walked away on it was just one of like the nastiest things. It was insane.
I don't like, after watching so many UFC events, I don't like gasp and shock that often, to be honest with you. But I think that happened for me like 4 times on this card. Like this was a fantastic job of the matchmakers. And I want to give credit to all of the guys we've talked about, but like we haven't even touched on Tim Elliott yet. And we've been talking about like just the old dogs are performing right now. And Tim Elliott had a rough first round. He had a rough first round. And then you saw this shift happen as soon as he got this takedown. You saw Kai Asakura like shell up afterwards where he's like, I can't extend on any of my punches or I'm going to get taken down. Like, and it totally changed Kai Asakura's fighting style in that second round.
Oh yeah, you saw a completely different person in the second round. The first round, I'm like, the first couple strikes that Asakura threw, I was like, oh shit, like those were fast. They're straight down the pipe. Like you could just see, like he has that explosive power in him. The first round, he was able to really capitalize on that until even that whenever Tim Elliott got that takedown, he ate a pretty decent head kick right before. Like he ate the head kick and used it to get the takedown and ended up on top for the last couple minutes there. But I'm like, you could tell just once Asakura's on bottom, like doesn't have it's not his wheel well down there. You know, he doesn't really have a lot of options. And for me as a jiu-jitsu person, I will never understand. I don't know how you can go into a fight just like that, incapable, feeling like he looked like he was drowning down there. How can you go into a fight when you know this is a possibility when you're that incapable in those positions?
Yeah, no, I don't disagree. And I think you have to have something there. Like if you aren't a good guard player, I understand if that's not your game, because that takes years to develop something like that. And if you don't have that kind of guard, then you need to have a really good game, like where you give up your back and you get back to your feet. You create a scramble. You are good at and Tim Elliott is fantastic at creating a scramble, and he's fantastic at winning that scramble and settling. And so it is very difficult to fight a guy like that who does have that. I feel like, what do you really do with Kai Asakura at this point? Because there's definitely guys he can beat at flyweight, but we're also having like just this huge influx of, I'm going to pull up the rankings. You're having this huge influx of talent coming into the flyweight division right now where, yeah, I'm with you, SG. Like where do we put Kai Asakura? Can he win fights in the rankings, especially with people seeing that it's not just Pantoja who can cut through his defenses on the ground like butter. It's guys lower in the rankings as well.
And like you're saying, it's not like you don't need these guys to start going to like learning arm bars and like sweeps. And like, he doesn't need to learn a good guard game. Like, look at Max Holloway. I'm like, I feel like he's impossible to take down and he's impossible to hold down, but you'll never really see him like going for an arm bar or like doing like any kind of jujitsu really. I'm like, he has a perfect jiu-jitsu game for a striker in MMA, where I'm like, you just have to know enough. So I'm like, it's not like Kaya Sakura has to go and invest years and years into learning jiu-jitsu. He just has to learn enough to keep himself safe and get himself back to his feet. So I'm like, and that point, I'm like, I think it is like things that you can still like change in your game, still learn. It's not like something like, I feel like that's the biggest issue with MMA. Whenever people are like, oh, his jiu-jitsu is terrible, we need to put him in a gi and he needs to start training jiu-jitsu. It's like, well, no, he doesn't need to start doing that now.
And you don't have time. You don't have time. Like, the people who have world-class jiu-jitsu in this sport did not develop it. Most of them did not develop it during their MMA training. They developed it because they grew up in the gi and they grew up in jiu-jitsu gyms. And so it's like, you don't need that. You need to learn how to create space, create space, create a scramble, or like you said, Max Holloway style is great. It's almost just this anti-wrestling. Great footwork. We're not standing in front of these guys. We're moving our feet constantly throwing volume, being elusive, and also just this, I want to be against the cage if you're wrestling me. So making sure they have to push you to the cage to be able to take you down, and then you can use the cage to defend. Like, I think that style is what you need. That style is what you need as a good striker. And it's like, if we're looking at the rankings here, I mean, Grant and I were talking about this last night. You have like, I think he could beat maybe like an Alex Perez, who's probably not going to grapple with him a whole lot. I think that maybe that's a better stylistic matchup for him. But you can't, does that make sense right now? Like, Alex Perez is at number 8. Kaya Sakura was 15. He was fighting up the rankings and he lost. But it's like, can he fight 3 places higher than the guy he just lost to? Does that really make sense? So it's like, then you might have to look outside the rankings for him, where there's a lot of really tough young guns coming up that are very well-rounded.
I think you do have to look outside the rankings, but like I said, while this is an issue that you can change, it is also something that has been exposed heavy already, and everybody's going to be gunning for this now when they fight you. You know, it's like everybody's going to know your hole. They know, okay, once I put him on his back, it's going to be over. So that's what they're going to be looking for. So it is definitely a difficult situation. I think that he should fight someone outside the rankings at this point. And again, like, just put him with the striker. Let's make it a firefight. Let's make it a fun fight right now, you know, give him an opportunity to build, because it's not like he doesn't belong there. It's not like he's not at that level. It's just, he definitely has some holes at this moment.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree. Is it Vinicius? Maybe
Oliveira?
Right? Is that who I'm thinking of? He might be a fun, super long, good striker.
Yeah.
Doesn't grapple a whole lot. Like,
is he a 25er or 35er?
See, maybe I'm combining 2 people in my brain, because I do that sometimes. He might be right. He might be the 35er that I'm thinking. No, that's the 35er, because he just fought Saeed. Who's the? I'll have to find it. Not Vinicius. And there's another long, lanky guy, kind of built like him, super sharp on the feet, but it's not him, because he fought Kyler Phillips and Saeed Nurmagomedov. He's not a flyweight. Anyway, honestly, maybe Kaya Sakura does go up to 35. He was a 35er exclusively in Ryzen. Maybe his style is a little bit better at 35, where he doesn't have to cut so much and he can keep a little bit more of his power. Like,
I'm not 100% sure how it works, but I know with like, they have like weight categories, not weight limits in Ryzen. So I'm not 100% sure if
championship.
I think it's the same, isn't it?
I don't know that they have the hydration tests at Ryzen.
Oh, I thought they did there as well.
No.
Okay, so then it is just bantamweight. Then he fought at.
No, outside the rankings, definitely not Manel Kape. You can't. That fight doesn't make sense. You can't give the guy that just lost at 15, Manel Kape, who I also think is probably going to go to 35 forever. And honestly, maybe should. Dude's either missing weight or getting hurt. I like, there has to be a reason for that, you know? I think Manel Kape could go up to 35 and do very well as well, to be honest.
Might be completely out of the, like what we're talking about here, but just missing weight. Brian Battle this weekend.
He used to make 70. What happened?
He missed he was supposed to make 170 his last fight, missed by 4 pounds. He was supposed to make 85 this time, missed by 4 pounds. I'm like, what do you, like, how do you go 20 pounds up from where you were last time?
I don't know what's happening. And he's made one. I know he missed that fight at 170, but he has made 170 before. How are you missing at a weight class that's 15 pounds heavier? Apparently he got sick. I don't know.
It's not an excuse. This is your third time missing weight with the UFC.
Full camp as well, right? Not
sure. I believe so. Yeah, and it was twice at 170. This is the third time now at 185. I'm like, you moved up. It's not even like you're moving up 10 pounds. You moved up 15 pounds and missed it by 4 pounds. I'm like, it's such a tough position because as a 7-1 fighter, it's so hard to cut him. But like, does he deserve it at this point?
I love Brian Battle. He's a super fun, exciting fighter. He's a great character, great personality. And 85 is a division that could use more juice. So it's like, but they just cut a heavyweight just for being boring. That was 7-1, you know? Like, I honestly don't know. I don't know what they do with him at this point. I'm not sure what happened behind the scenes. Maybe the UFC knows things that we don't, and is it his fourth? I thought it was his third. Yeah, I think it's
I believe it's his third in the UFC at least.
But you might be right here, A. Might have been better off pulling out. Like, if it's that bad, if you're that sick, I don't know that you should be fighting, you know? And we G and I were kind of chatting about this week. We just saw what came out about Amanda Ribas. Because I remember when we were talking about that fight initially, you said you almost felt like it looked like she quit a little bit, where it didn't look like that elbow should have put her down in the way that it did. And then we find out she's got this metal plate that's been shifting from a surgery she had, and she's having seizures. And it's like, I want to know who is in the corner of these fighters that is allowing them, if you were that sick, or you're having that severe of a health problem, like your corner should not be allowing you to go into this fight. And you should also have the wherewithal to not be taking these fights if that's the situation that you're in right now.
Oh yeah, I mean, like, to an extent, you don't go into every fight perfect. You're always going to go in with some type of like injury in some way. But if you're having seizures, or if you can't do your job and make weight, then like you shouldn't be showing up, period. Like, it is, I don't know, it's our responsibility to be able to go out there and perform. Amanda Ribas obviously wasn't able to perform. It looked to all of us like she quit because she just went down so fast because of this health issue she never had taken care of previously. So she wasn't prepared to fight. Brian Battle wasn't prepared because if he was sick or not, I'm like, I really don't care if he was sick or not at this point. I'm like, you went up a weight class already. I'm like, it doesn't matter how sick you were. You should have made weight. And someone asked in the comments, they're like, does the UFC provide meal plans during camps? They provide us with meal plans. They'll provide us with dietitians. They provide us with whatever we ask for, supplements. So I'm like, there is no reason anybody should ever miss weight, period.
I don't disagree with you. I think the only time I like give some grace, just because I've watched people I know go through it, is when you have $300 in your bank account and they won't give you a full camp. That's the only time I have some grace. But if you have a full camp, you should be making weight.
Okay, it's just, I'm like, I don't know. I can understand if it's short notice, and that's my only excuse for people. If you take a short notice fight and you miss weight, it's like, okay, you took a risk and you were like, I think I can make it. You didn't make it. I understand that. But I'm like, if you have a camp and you have time to make it, it is your job 100% to be able to calculate if you can make that or not.
Yeah, no, I 100%.
Even UFC offers, I did like biometric testing where they like measure like the weight of your bones, your organs, like how much fat you have, how much calories you burn while you're moving, while you're not moving. They like all this scientific stuff just to know if you can fit in this weight class or fit in this weight class, or where you do fit. Like, I did it whenever I was figuring out to transition to straw weight, and they put that I was in like the bottom percentile of the flyweights with how my body composition was, where I was in a normal percentile for straw weights, where they'll show you if you're in a healthy weight class for where your body fat is and like where you're at. So it's like, there is no reason you can't, you have all the tools, the UFC is giving you all the tools. There's no reason for you to miss weight.
No, I don't disagree. And also weight cutting has come so much further. And if you're still cutting weight the way we were 15 years ago, when we know what we know now, and the UFC provides, if you can't afford we hire our own nutritionist, Grant and I do. We don't, obviously I don't use the PI because I'm not in the UFC, but Grant doesn't use the PI nutritionist. We hire somebody individually because we like that guy and we think that he's the best. However, if you can't afford to do that, you don't have to. The PI has like a pretty solid number of dietitians and nutritionists just on there. GPT is my nutritionist. ChatGPT is my doctor, guys. My knee pops at practice. Like I'm over on my phone, like having ChatGPT assess my knee so I don't have to go to the doctor, which is definitely going to not be smart long term, but ChatGPT for the win. But no, you have the resources available to you 100%.
I've been with the, like I said, since I did the biometrics coming down to straw weight, I've been with just the PI doing all my cuts to 115 since then. And I'm like, obviously it's gone pretty well for me so far. And I'm like, I honestly feel like it just keeps getting better and better. And also to what you said, I'm like, all of the bro signs that I have figured out that I've been doing for years and years, that my dietitian's just like, oh, you're killing yourself doing that. And I'm like, oh, that makes sense. That's why that felt like shit. Or that's like, there's so many things that I feel, I blame wrestlers, honestly. I always blame the wrestling community. I feel like they came up with
toxic weight cutting stuff.
I'm like, so many wrestlers tell me things and I'm just like, no, you don't do that. Why would you ever do that?
Well, and I think people bring it over from the sport because they also forget that MMA, you have 24 hours. You don't have to cut weight like you do in wrestling. Like, you aren't getting on the scale and competing. So you have the ability to cut a little bit more in fight week because you have so much more time to rehydrate and to fill back out. And so it's like, it's a totally different sport with a totally different weigh-in schedule.
Even just like, I don't know if you've ever heard this one. I'm like, I've always heard, don't do it anymore, but they always say to put green rubbing alcohol in a bath whenever you're taking an Epsom salt bath. So you do Epsom salt, green rubbing alcohol, and then water like as hot as you can make it. And I'm like, I don't know who came up with that. What, like whose idea that was. So while you're nauseous cutting weight, you're just inhaling this green rubbing alcohol and making yourself more nauseous.
Dude, you don't even need the Epsom salt. A hot bath will make you sweat.
Yeah, I'm like, there's so many things that I'm like,
or water.
I don't know who came up with it. I'm not going to say I've never done any of them. I'm like, there's a bunch of them. Even like wearing a sauna suit inside of a sauna, you're just cooking your organs. You don't need to do that. I'm like, there's so many things that fighters do where you're just like slowly killing yourself during a weight cut and have no idea, but it's because the bro science tells you.
100%. And just tradition, like my thing. And some people still love to cut weight this way, and I'm not knocking on them. I just think they're insane. The people who work out to cut weight, like I'm gonna do as little physical output as humanly possible. I'm going to sit in my bath and just accept my fate. There are people who are like hitting pads to lose 10 pounds, and I'm like, you're absolutely insane. That looks miserable to me.
I always do this. I'm like, I do 3 3-minute round shadow boxing, hop in the sauna, and then after like I'm finished like maybe 1 or 2 sessions, I'll weigh myself. And then after like once I weigh myself, I have to take my clothes off. So then after that, I'm not putting my clothes back on. So we're going in a bath if we need it anymore. So I'm like, it's always the same process for me.
Yeah, no, yeah, this is a great question. I feel like this is not what we haven't even talked about, like any of the prelims, so we will get back to that. But I feel like we never really talk about this. So we should definitely chat. Yes, water loading is still a thing. I do think what I've noticed, and I don't know if you've noticed the same thing, I noticed a lot of people used to taper their water, which I think is also kind of a wrestler thing. And now we've kind of noticed that doesn't really make a difference. And it's better to just load and then cut water, essentially. Like pretty much the day we start cutting.
My dietitian does it opposite. I'm like, we still taper.
Okay.
So usually it depends, like, I don't know, it depends on a lot of things, like where you're at in weight. Honestly, if you're a girl, if you have your period or not, you're holding a lot more water, so you can't water load as much too. So I'm like, it depends how much water you need to water load with. And then we usually just taper down through the week. So I'm like, I usually start at like, I don't know, a couple liters a day. And then like through the week, by the end of the week, I'm usually doing like 1 liter for the day. And then that's it. Or maybe even not, depending on where my weight's at.
So people still use both. I do think I've still seen people use tapering. I've noticed our nutritionist recently has had us stop, and I haven't really noticed the difference personally or for Grant, but that makes sense. Yeah.
No, I was gonna say, I've worked with a bunch of different nutritionists, and I'm like, I feel like they all have different like approach, different methods, different ways they like to do things. But like, if it gets you there, then can't complain.
As long as you're feeling good performing too, because we've definitely seen people make weight, but then they look like a shell of themselves when they're fighting. So it's like, and the science is so much better, but at the same time, we don't have like a solid body of research. It's not like there are these massive meta-analysis studies where you have thousands of fighters that they've looked at over the effects of 20 years, things like that. We just don't have that kind of research. And I don't know that we ever will, because that would be a really hard study to conduct. But we know more now, thankfully. So yeah, we haven't even talked about the new deal. So guys, Tuesday, by the way, Jake, we will not have our normal live show. It will not be 1 to 3 p.m. Eastern. We will be starting around 2-ish, and we'll actually be live at the Bee Ocean Resort in Fort Lauderdale, which is where PFL will be doing some of their stuff. So we are going to be there live, and we will have some of the PFL staff and fighters on. G will be there with me. Unfortunately, Grant will not be there, but G will be there. Dave and I will be there. It's going to be lots of fun. Dan Hardy is going to come on and chat with us for a bit. We're going to have a good time. So that's Tuesday. The rest of your question, they didn't necessarily, Dana White didn't say they aren't increasing pay. He just said that they have a lot of time to figure out what they're going to do. And to be honest, I wouldn't be shocked if they didn't increase pay. But I tend to lean on the side that they probably will at least increase starting pay and maybe double or even give out a lot more bonuses as well. Like, imagine if bonuses flip to where if you get a finish, you get a bonus. Everybody that gets a finish gets a bonus. Imagine if they did that setup. I think we'd see a lot more finishes. And I feel like we would, if the dollar amount of the bonuses go up and you just see a lot more bonuses being handed out, you could still see fighters make millions more.
Yeah, I saw a meme this week that it was like, with the change of the bonus amount, does Dan Ige change his name?
I saw that.
Do we leave the 50K?
No, that's fair. I feel like we gotta know. We have to know the information first, but so it's I honestly don't know. But Dana White didn't say they're not increasing pay. He just said the easy answer right now is that we definitely will increase bonuses. But I think the finish bonus is a great idea. I think that should just be locked into everybody's contract. You get a finish, you get a bonus. $150,000.
I'm not arguing with that. I'm like, I've got majority of my wins are finishes, and I'm like, I think I've got 2 50K bonuses. Even my UFC debut, I'm like, probably the slickest submission I pulled off. I'm like, I hit a really nice armbar, and I was the first fight on the card, so it was definitely bold of me to think this, but I was like, that might be 50K. It was just like a really nice setup, this armbar. I was like, that was perfect. And then that night, there happened to be, I can't remember his name now, but a rolling calf slicer was hit. And I was like, you're kidding. I'm like, so hyped to hit this cool armbar, and you got to hit a rolling calf slicer. So I'm like, I'm definitely down for all the finishes get a bonus.
Yeah, no, I support that. And I think like guys who have been around a long time at some point even are able to like negotiate finishing clauses and things like that into their contracts. I don't think most fighters can do that. I think you have to be around a long time, but maybe we also see more unique contracts come through now that they just have this, they literally have $6 billion more to play with. maybe they're just more open to how they structure contracts as well. Maybe you can negotiate a little bit more as an individual. Who knows? So I'm very interested to see. Yes, definitely. He'll be loaded if we add the finishing bonus, but
On my second rounds.
only round 2. I feel like that's how Grant's like first several fights in the UFC were. It was just everybody was just betting Grant Dawson round 2 sub.
That's how it all. I feel like my round 1, I gotta feel him out a little bit. Round 2, I always find it. So I'm like, I think I have 1 finish in round 3 and 1 finish in round 1, but I'm always round 2.
No, I'm. That's like the sweet spot. I agree. I feel like you need a round to kind of warm it up to it. Guys, I don't mean to interrupt this conversation about the new deal, but I do feel like the prelims deserve some love. Like I have like 10 minutes left, so we have to give the prelims some love here. The first fight of the night, I just want to start there. Joseph Morales getting back into the UFC, winning the tough finale against a guy who I know is very good, at Alibi Idris. I'm going to try not to, there's a lot of eyes going on there. Try not to butcher his name, but that's a talented young man. Like he is a good fighter, and Morales made that look so effortless. I feel like he looked better in the finale than he did fighting anybody else that he did on the entire show.
I was just going to say that. I was like, I don't know if it, because obviously in the Tough House, you don't have your coaches. You don't have like a real fight camp. You don't have things like that. So it's like, there's that element to it. And there's the element that he's already been in the UFC, where Alibi, that's his first time under those big lights, where Morales has a little bit more, I guess, experience there, just already having that presence. So I'm like, I think those two elements may have just really come into play for him, where he just showed up. He looked phenomenal all around on the striking, his wrestling, his jiu-jitsu, just looked clean, great performance. Like you said, every single performance in the house didn't come close to this one, where I'm like, he really impressed me last night.
No, I was, you definitely saw like glimpses of a very young, almost better Joey B. Like you can tell that guy grew up training with Joe Benavidez 100%. Like you can see it in his style and his tenacity and the scrambles and everything. But the back takes, it was so funny too. The one time he lost the back, I was like, oh, he's good. And then every other time he didn't lose the back, I'm like, oh, he's too high. And then he would somehow stay on the back. But just the transitions from the back take to the triangle, and one time back to the back, like just the flow of his grappling, I was so impressed with. So impressed.
Yeah, no, like I said, I guess I just didn't expect it out of him. You know, he definitely shocked me because of the performances on the house. Honestly, Alibi probably impressed me more in the house, like just through the show. So I'm like, to see it, Morales come out there like that, and like you said, the transitions, just like effortless, smooth. It was super impressive.
100%. So we honestly, we aren't going to have time to go through this whole prelim card, and I wish we could. So maybe we'll do another little segment. Maybe I'll call G and we'll find some time, because I feel like this, like Alexander Hernandez, whoever decided to matchmake Jessica Andrade and Lupi Godinez, thank you so much. That fight was just fantastic. Great fight. I thought Jessica was going to get it done in the third. I was rooting for her hard for the comeback, but Lupi Godinez looked super crisp those first 2 rounds. The wrestling, as always, fantastic. Like that fight was great. Michael Olachechek crushing it since his move to the Fighting Nerds. I know you love the Fighting Nerds as well. Like he's just looked so clean on the feet. I love his striking style.
Oh yeah, like literally his first 2 punches, I was like worried for Gerald Mearshart. I'm like, looks so clean. And yeah, like you said, since he came to the Fighting Nerds, and I'm like, I don't know why. He's the first non-Brazilian that I see representing the Fighting Nerds. It's unique. And yeah, I love it for him. But yeah, he definitely has changed something, where it's just like the precision on his striking right now is like something scary.
Well, I think it's what they've managed to do with him is really special too, because he's not like a sniper. And I don't think, when I look at his striking, I don't see like, oh, this guy is elusive and has been striking his whole life and it's so clean and it's so sharp. It's not that, but it's so heavy and the pressure's there, and he moves his head just enough to keep him safe in those exchanges. And also the commentary team, like they kind of hit the nail on the head with Gerald Meerschaert. You know what he's going to do. And he's not, as he's getting older, I think it's a little bit harder for him to disguise when he's shooting. There's just not as much setup. There's not as much speed and reaction time there. And so, like, man, like, he just had no answers for Olechechek here.
Oh, yeah. And know who actually really impressed me, too, which I completely counted him out of this fight, was Alexander Hernandez.
Yeah, me too.
I was one-sided 100%. Like, Chase Hooper's been looking great recently. He's going to 100% walk right through him. Completely different story walking out there. Hernandez was able to shut down all of his takedown attempts. It almost looks like it was like shutting Chase down mentally. Like, he was throwing those spinning back fists over and over and over again. And I'm like, bro, like, if you're doing that, then, like, you're not focused.
I honestly, I went right to bed. I didn't see who bonused, and I didn't have time to check this morning. Khamzat did not get a bonus. That's disappointing. If I was a young fighter on that prelim card, I'd be really bummed right now.
Khamzat, and then I believe there's 3 other guys on the main card who got it. I know Tim Elliott, and then I'm assuming the 2 spinning back elbows too are the ones.
No, that's fair. That's fair. I guess I feel for like those guys earlier on the card.
I don't think Khamzat deserved it. I don't think a performance like that deserves the $50K, and it's not like he even needs it in the first place. Where it's like you said, an early prelim guy, that money is kind of life-changing. Where Khamzat didn't put on he didn't even put on a performance that is like, okay, well, he deserves that.
Yeah, no, that's disappointing, especially when there's guys like Alex Hernandez and Olechechek on the prelim card. That's kind of a bummer. But
yeah, I just double checked. It was Tim Elliott and the 2 spinning back elbows, and then main event.
I'm not upset about the 2 spinning back elbows. Just I want, this is the last fight I want to talk about before we get off here. I agree with this. I am not as high on Chimaev as everybody else is, and I don't know if I'm off base here, but for me, that looked like most other debut fights where one of the fighters is fighting up a weight class on short notice.
I'm high on Eric Nolan now. That's all I'm saying.
I am too. And I just, if we're looking at the competition outside the UFC, like, I'm not saying these guys don't deserve to be in the UFC. I think they do. But Chimaev is, he's not as high on my list as he is on everybody else. And even on the Contender Series, like, yes, it was a really beautiful teep. But I don't know. I'm not looking at this guy and seeing something super, super special. I feel like Eric Nolan almost had him, like, he looked like he was going to quit on the stool in between the first and second round. And I almost thought it was going to happen. And then Eric Nolan almost quit a little bit. Like, he made a huge mistake trying to roll through for a leg when he was up and he could have stayed up. And then he didn't seem to be very urgent to get back to his feet or to really do too much once he got taken down, to be honest.
No, again, like you said, I wasn't like super impressed with this performance on Contender. Obviously, it was an impressive knockout, but it wasn't like something like, I don't know, Dana was like in love with it. And I don't know if it just has to do with Dana obviously has a huge thing for Khamzat right now. That's Khamzat's teammate. It's probably something in relation to that. He wants to kind of propel them together in some way, like have the same, I don't know, same star. But I don't understand what he was doing with throwing. Like, I thought that he was going to step up short notice against somebody, not that they were throwing this fight together short notice, which I'm just like, I don't understand the point of this unless you are trying to recreate that Khamzat. Like, he fought back to back week after week and didn't get touched. And like, it's like they're trying to recreate that narrative through this guy where it's like, it's just not the same. And like you said, Eric Nolan rocked him at the end of the first. He had him like wondering where he was.
I gave him the first round. He won.
Oh, yeah, 100%. Me too, because of that damage at the end of the round. But I also feel like for fighters taking fights on like short notice, taking these huge opportunities, there is sometimes that little thing in the back of their head that it gives them the opportunity to quit. It's like, all right, well, nobody expected me to do this anyway. Nobody expected me to make it this far. So it's like, I don't know. You saw it was kind of a little bit, he gave up. He didn't really, I don't know. He quit a little bit.
No, and I wouldn't have been mad about this either. Like, I also wasn't like, it's not like the fight beforehand was like so competitive, because normally the matchmaking on Contender Series lately has been pretty competitive fights. That fight wasn't competitive on Contender Series. Like, it's not like the other guy was having really any moments at all. It seemed like he was there for Sakaev to beat him, is how it looked to me. And so it's like, we'll see. We'll see how this ages. But I feel like if we look at Khamzat's path, yes, for sure, there were people who were doubtful that he was going to make a title run, but he was coming into the UFC and annihilating veterans. Gerald Mearshart, the Leech. This guy is struggling with a debut guy. They're just not on the same level for me. So I'm glad I'm not the only one that's feeling that way.
I'm like, you can be Khamzat's teammate and not be Khamzat. You know, it's like so many people get it confused. Like, oh, he trains with this guy. He trains with this guy. I'm like, you can train with that guy and you can suck. It doesn't, like, you can be the person that they beat up the whole time. You know, it's like, it doesn't mean that you're good just because you train with somebody who's good. But that being said about the Contender, I will say I am super happy that Dana doesn't seem like he's like sign happy. He doesn't seem like he just wants to sign everybody this year. So I'm like, he seems like he's back a little bit. Even the second fight of the night, he kind of scolded them a little bit for the performance.
I probably would have signed that guy, you know?
And I can understand where Dana's coming from, though. Like, for a Contender Series fight, you need something more exciting than just like he controlled the grappling the whole time. Where I'm like, I like that, Dana. I like this is what we should have for the Contender Series. We shouldn't just be signing every single person. We should be signing the exciting fighters who are going in there to finish and show what the Contender Series is really about.
Yeah, no, 100%. And we had some epic fights, like in the last couple, or like 2 seasons ago. You had Jack Della Maddalena and Angelusa. Like, and look what that produced. Look at the champion that fight produced. Like, that's what I feel like the Contender Series should be for. Like, we still have the Ultimate Fighter. So if there's guys who maybe aren't ready for Contender Series, they have an opportunity to fight a couple times in the house to build a little bit more experience. You know, I think we have so many avenues. I agree with you. We should be pickier about Contender Series. I lied. We're going to talk about one more fight because, yes, 100%. Deonna Barbosa won that fight. I don't understand how you won a round where you were on your back with a body triangle, which I will say, I don't think the commentary team noticed that she was stuck in the body triangle. Like, I don't even know how that happened, but did you see that? She was like, they had to untangle them at the end of the fight. She had the body triangle, and then she like had her foot hooked inside Deonna Barbosa's like hip, where she literally couldn't, and she was like scooched in, so she couldn't undo her body triangle. Why you would body triangle in bottom guard in the first place is beyond me, because that's not an offensive position. But I thought Barbosa very clearly won that fight. G didn't even sit around for the decision because she was so sure they won that fight, or she won that fight. So yeah, that was a weird one for me.
Yeah, I walked my dogs right before the fight, so I had to like rewind to get to watch that. So I watched the whole fight, and then I just fast forwarded to the next fight. Didn't even watch the decision because I was like, okay, Deonna won that. And then when it was actually when Elle texted me and asked me about it, and then I looked back, I was like, Deonna didn't win that. I was like, wait, what happened?
Yeah, that was bizarre to me. And DC was up in arms about that, and I'm kind of with him. It was bizarre. There was some bizarre judging. I thought Deonna had, Silva maybe had one. She was like, I almost finished the fight 3 times. You had maybe one submission attempt that was deep, and that was the guillotine.
Yeah, Silva's someone who came into the UFC, and I had really high hopes for her first couple fights. Her last fight and this fight hasn't really performed as well. And I'm like, her third round, I think she came back a little bit more. Deonna looked like she was a little bit more gassed in the third. But the first 2 rounds, it looked like Deonna was just kind of big brothering her almost. She just looked a step ahead of her everywhere.
Yeah, and she took this fight on short notice as well. So it's like, that's something to be said about Barbosa's performance as well. So I am pretty gutted for her. I thought that was a pretty clear win for her, and she should have gotten the hype of a big win on short notice. So that's my 2 cents on that. But do you have anything else for the people, Gillian, before I close this out?
No, I think that's good for today.
I'm sorry we couldn't get into the rest of the prelims. There were too many good fights. This card absolutely did it for us. We will hopefully talk about this again. Maybe we'll talk about it in Fort Lauderdale on Tuesday or at the Hard Rock. We'll do something fun we'll give the rest of the prelims some love. But thank you guys so much for joining us. Don't forget Tuesday, 2 p.m.-ish. We're not sure when we're going to have our setup in the room we're going to be in. So that's why we don't have an exact start time for you guys, but just stay tuned on the YouTube. You will see us around 2 p.m. Eastern on Tuesday, and we'll be live with lots of fun guests for you guys. So thank you. We love you. We'll see you Tuesday. Bye.